The Bridge at Dawn, written by Victor Hugo. Paris, 2025. The city, though burdened by its modern steel and glass, still bore the eternal perfume of its stones, those stones that had absorbed centuries of footsteps, laughter, and sorrow. The Seine flowed on untroubled, as if mocking the hurried lives of those who crossed its bridges. Among the multitude, two souls moved separately, unaware that destiny, more stubborn than mathematics, more enduring than the steel of towers, was weaving their lives together. Éloise was a restorer of old books, a guardian of fragile pages upon which long-dead poets had spilled their fire. Her small shop near the Latin Quarter smelled of ink and eternity. Every morning she walked along the river to greet her books before greeting the world. Michael was an American architect, newly arrived, tasked with designing a sterile modern complex in the very heart of Paris. He carried in his mind the blueprints of a future that did not care for poetry, nor for the size of ancient walls. Yet his heart was weary. He felt himself a stranger not only to the city, but also to his own vocation. One morning, beneath the gray veil of dawn, Éloise dropped a book she was carrying across Pont Neuf. It was no ordinary book, but a collection of Hugo's poems, bound in leather soft with time. The book struck the stones and slid towards the edge of the bridge. Michael, arriving from the opposite side, bent quickly and caught it before it fell into the water. Their eyes met over the rescued volume, hers dark as midnight ink, his pale with the hue of a cloudy sky. In that instant there was no Paris, no America, no river, only a silent recognition, the kind that speaks not to the mind, but to the very marrow of the soul. Éloise, with a small smile, said, "You have saved the words of Hugo. That is no small deed." Michael, uncertain whether to jest or to bow, simply replied, "Perhaps it is the words of Hugo who have saved me." From that moment the river had a new witness, two figures walking together morning after morning, speaking of everything and of nothing. They discussed the arrogance of new buildings and the humility of old books, the cruelty of time and its generosity when it brought two wandering souls to the same bridge. Éloise showed him the scars of the city, the alleys where laughter still echoed, the small cafes where chairs wobbled but hearts were steady. Michael, in turn, revealed to her the silent geometry of his sketches, the way a straight line could carry the same passion as a verse when drawn with honesty. Days became weeks, weeks became the gentle promise of something larger, and yet both trembled before the question that neither dared to utter. Was this friendship, or had the Seine itself whisper the deeper truth into their hearts? The answer came not in words, but in silence. One evening, a storm shook Paris. The rain lashed against the rooftops, lightning revealed the gargoyles like ancient ghosts, and the Seine swelled with a dark voice. Éloise's shop flooded, her books threatened with ruin. She stood helpless, watching the water creep closer to her shelves. Then Michael appeared, soaked, carrying boards and plastic sheets. Without a word he worked beside her, his hands trembling but determined, fighting against the indifferent water. Together they lifted volumes, dried pages, placed candles in the darkness. For hours they battled, until at last the flood relented. When all was calm, Michael looked at him. His clothes clung to his skin, his face was pale, his breath unsteady. But his eyes carried a fire she had never seen before. She whispered, "You have saved not only Hugo's words, but mine as well." Michael, voice breaking, answered, "Éloise, I came to Paris to build walls, but I have found something greater. I have found the soul that makes walls unnecessary." And then, as if commanded by the very spirit of Hugo, he took her hand, not with the passion of sudden fire, but with the solemnity of an oath. In that clasp was not only affection, but the certainty of belonging, the certainty that the world, cruel and chaotic though it was, had, at least for them, offered justice. Years later, when their hair had silvered and their steps grown slower, passers-by still saw them crossing the bridge at dawn. They were no longer Eloise the restorer or Michael the architect. They were simply two hearts, faithful to a meeting arranged by chance, or perhaps by eternity itself. And the Seine, eternal witness, kept flowing beneath them, carrying away all that was transient, but never the memory of that morning when a book nearly fell, and instead 2 lives were forever saved.